Hi student, welcome once again in the evolution of the life. I am Dr. Vishal Vaidya from Department of Zoology, Gandhi College, Kada. I am going to discuss with you the best and the informative knowledge of the evolution. Lot of questions will arise in the mind of my student that about the evolution. Evolution means what, and what are the stages of evolution, what are the systematic plans of evolution, and what is evolution, and what are the concept of the evolution. So the evolution is a very simple explanatory part of the biology and very interesting. So what today I am going to discuss with you the newly bit and the modern bit of the evolution, that is organic evolution. Now what is evolution? First of all, the definition is very simple: the formation of complex organisms through a gradual change. Look at that. The formation of complex organisms through a gradual change from the simple ancestral type over the course of the geological time is termed evolution or organic evolution. What is the definition? The formation of the complex organisms through a gradual change from a simple ancestral type over the course of geological time is termed as the evolution or organic evolution. Now, there are different theories of organic evolution, but according to the theory of organic evolution, the various present day organisms were not created in the same form in which they exist today, but have gradually evolved from much simple ancestral forms from a common ancestors. Now, what is there saying that? Due to the common ancestral forms. Now, in the next point of our discussion, the characteristic of organism had been changed in the past. Look at that word. The characteristic of the organism had been changing in the past. They are changing even today and will continue to do so in the future as well. This is due to the fact that the environment in which the organism live also changes, and organism need to adapt to the changed environment in order to survive. Several things organism or several living organisms of the past have become extinct. The origin of the various forms, like the species found on the earth, has been gradual or extremely slow process requiring hundreds or even thousands of the years. That's why we are going to discuss the next part. However, the evolution of the black peppered moth or the polyploid varieties of some crops or the pesticide resistance mosquitoes happened is much shorter period of time. This process of the slow or gradual change is called as organic evolution. A very simple definition of organic evolution is that the slow and gradual change. The process of the slow and gradual change is also called as the organic evolution. The theory of organic evolution states that all living things on earth are here as a result of descent with modification from a common ancestor. Look at that word again, very underlined definition, that theory of organic evolution states that all living things on the earth are here as a result of the descent with modification from a common ancestor. Descent with modification from the common ancestor. That is the theory of organic evolution, it stated. Then about what are the evidences of the organic evolution? That question is came in normal. What are the evidences? If suppose I am going to state you the things like X and X and X things are like that, then you have to be asked me what are the evidences for that things. So what? The question arises in front of the scientists, the people asking that question, have you any evidences for that? What you are putting in front of us? The scientists, they are showing or they are supporting or they are giving some evidences supporting the organic evolutions that are derived from number of fields of the biology. Those discussed now here. morphological evidences, embryological evidences, paleontological evidences, and molecular evidences. There are 4 evidences which scientists they put forth in front of us. Now, about the one by one we will discuss those evidences of the morphology, paleontology. We will discuss one by one those. For the discussion of this bit, now I am going to discuss you the evidences from the morphology. Through organism of different species and group are quite different from each other, they still remain certain common features. The morphological evidences are for the evolution are derived from the homologous and analogous organs. I am going to discuss in you the morphological structure. They are first of all the homologous and analogous organs, vestigial organs, and connecting link. Those are the 3 parts of the evidences of morphology. We will discuss one by one. In the homology or in the comparative study of various organs in different groups of vertebrates exhibit a common feature which show that evolved from a common ancestor. Take an example of the heart of the vertebrates. Now, in the heart of vertebrates, are showing you the Pisces heart A, B is a amphibian heart, and C is a reptile heart, and D is a mammalian heart. What you are observing from those 4 hearts? That different things you have observed. First of all, the Pisces showing you the 2 compartment heart, that is one auricle, one ventricle. Okay, 2 chambered heart. And the amphibians, they are showing you the 1 ventricle and 2 auricles, right and left auricle. And the reptiles, they are showing you the ventricles means 2 auricles and 2 ventricles. Okay, but and the lastly the mammal, they are showing you the complete design of the 4 means the quadrate heart, means the 2 ventricles, 2 auricles. Okay, and this is a systematic, diagrammatical, comparative resembling thing of the evolution. Means when our evolution or our ancestors come from the Pisces, that heart, it's showing you the 2 chamber. Now in the amphibians, those are the next, they are showing you the 3 chamber, means 2.5 chambered half. Now the reptile, they are showing you the incomplete 4 chambered heart, and but the mammal, they are showing you complete 4 chambered heart. This is an example of the heart, of the vertebrates, which are showing you the comparative study of different vertebrates. About the homologous organ, this is the next part of our discussion. Homologous organs are the organs which are simpler in structure and origin. Look at that, word is very important. Homologous organs are the organs which are simpler in structure and origin, but look very different and perform different function. The simpler in structure and origin, but they look very different and perform different functions. They are called as homologous organs. 4 limbs of vertebrates are a good example of the homologous organ. 4 limbs of the wings of the 4 limbs of the vertebrates, they are showing a good example of the homologous organ because they all are simpler in structure and origin, but they show a different and perform a different functions. They are built on the same fundamental plan, yet they appear different and perform different functions. They have the same fundamental plan of their structure. In each case, the 4 limb consists of the humerus, radius, ulna, carpus, metacarpus, and phalanges. Those are the things which they consist in the baseline structure. In case they are consist the humerus, radius, ulna, carpus, and metacarpus, and phalanges. This basic symmetry in the structure of the apparently different 4 limbs of different kind of vertebrate is due to the fact that all these limbs have evolved from a common type called pentadactyl. What is that? Pentadactyl means 5-fingered limb. So they are called as pentadactyl. These limbs have evolved from common type. So, okay, those are called as pentadactyl. The homologous organ in front of you, I am showing you the figure which showing you the homology and the adaptation in bones of the forelimbs of the some vertebrates. The first they are showing the birds, whales, cat, horse and the human. Those four limbs of those. In the they are showing you the humerus, radioulna, carpals, metacarpals and the phalanges. Means the plan of the action is same. Means the structure is same. The homologous organ therefore provide this that different kind of organism came into the existence through evolution. Now, what is the analogous organ? It is again opposite to the homologous organ. Apparently they are same, but structurally and functionally they are different. They are homologous, but the structure which are functionally similar but structurally different, functionally similar, structurally different, are called as analogous organ. This is an main difference. In examination, they will ask you the questions or they will ask you the comparative questions of the homologous and the analogous organ. That time you put that word, that analogous, they are functionally similar but structurally different, are called as analogous organs. The wing of an insect and that of bird or bat or pentadactyl are the example of analogous organs, which is the figure it is showing the analogy between the wings of insect of a different vertebrates. The function of the wing is the same, which is for flying, but the insect wing no structural resemblance with that of the vertebrates. Likewise, the insect wing structurally that same, but functionally they are same. Structurally they are different, functionally they are similar. So what it is called as the analogous organ. Now the next, that is the vestigial organ. The vestigial organ is any small, degenerate or imperfectly developed, means non-functional organ or part which may have been complete and functional in some ancestor. What is that vestigial organ? It is non-functional organ. Okay, and but small, degenerate or imperfectly developed or non-functional organ or part which may have been complete and functional in some ancestor. In our some ancestor, they have like the tail which is present as a part in our ancestor. But now we are tailless. Likewise, few examples are in front of you in this figure. Some vestigial organ in the human body, that body hair in a male. This is an vestigial now. Then the wisdom of the teeth is an appendix which is present in the stomach region, appendix and the tail vertebra Those are the vestigial structures nowadays in the human being. So what? They are the example. The only rational explanation for the presence of those or these non-functional organs is that they have been inherited from the ancestors in which they were functional. That the figure show some of the vestigial structures in the human body. Likewise, nowadays the doctor said if you are pain in the stomach, doctor said that you do operation of the appendix because it come from your ancestry. But nowadays it is non-functional, so just degenerate or just operate it from your body or remove it from your body. That doctor said that is the vestigial organ. Nowadays we have no tail. Yes, we have body hairs, but they are non-functional. So what? It is an example of the vestigial organs. Now the next slide is showing you the connecting link. The connecting link. What is connecting link? Nowadays we are connected with the mobiles. That is a connecting link. But what is the connecting link of the evolution till the day? The animal or the plant which possesses character of two different groups of the organisms are known as a connecting link. Look at that. Again I am reciting you. The animal or the plant which possesses characters of two different groups of organism are known as a connecting link. Means who are possessing the character of two different groups in one organism, they are called as the connecting link between the two organisms. The connecting link established continuity in the series of organisms by providing that one group has evolved from the other. What is a good example of that is the fossil bird Archaeopteryx, which is showing you in figure, that is Archaeopteryx, which was a connecting link between the reptiles and the birds. This Archaeopteryx is a connecting link between the reptiles and birds. Why? This bird had a beak with teeth and a long tail with bones like the lizard. Look at that functional thing of this example. Archaeopteryx is this bird had a beak with teeth and long tail with bones like the lizard. That's why it is an connecting link between the reptiles and the bird. It has feathers on the wings and on the body like the birds. So what? He is a connecting link character between the reptiles and the birds. Now, the embryological, no, those are the anatomical things. Now, we are moving towards the embryological evidences or the evidences from the embryology. Embryology is the study of development of an organism. The embryo, whenever the embryo is come from the first month, second month, means that their development is showing. So, embryology is the study of development of an organism. The aspect of embryology which support the doctrine of the origin of the evolution. They are similar stages of early development, means the morula, the blastula or the gastrula in all the animals. What I am saying you, the aspect of embryology which support the doctrine of the evolution, of the organic evolution, they are the similar stages of the development, that is morula, blastula and the gastrula in all animals. That's same. The embryos of all vertebrates are similar in shape and structure in their early stage. Every vertebrate showing you the similar embryo shape and structure in their early stage. What I am saying you, in the early, in the first one or two stages, they are similar in all vertebrates comprises to the mammals. This resemblance is so close that it is difficult to tell them apart. All the vertebrates start their life from a single cell, the zygote. The zygote is a single cell structure. All of them during the life history pass through two-layered blastula and three-layered gastrula stage, and then through a fish-like stage with a gill slits. All the different aspects of embryology strongly support the fact that different stages of the vertebrate had a common ancestry. They had a common ancestry. It means they are single stage, zygote is formed, then the nextly that is two-layered blastula is formed, nextly that is gastrula stage is formed, and then the fish stage like structure gill slit is formed. So that is why it is called as all the vertebrates, the different class of the vertebrates had a common ancestors. Now, in the next slide, we are going to discuss with you the evidences from the paleontology. Paleontology means what? What is meant by paleontology? Paleontology is the study of fossils. The fossils are the remains. What is fossil? The fossils, they are the remains or the traces of the animal and the plant life of the past. Look at that. I am going to discuss with you the two more important definitions of the organic evolution. That is paleontology. It means study of fossils. Fossils means remains or the traces of the animal and the plant life of the past, found embedded in the rock either as a petrified hard parts or as a molds or the cast or the tracks. In the examination, this question will come. What is definition of the paleontology? Definition of the fossils. Fossils are the remains or the traces of the animals and the plant life of the past found embedded in a rock, either as a petrified hard part or as a molds or cast or tracks. Fossils of the earliest era in a geological time scale were those of the bacteria, then the invertebrates, then the successively of the fishes, the amphibians, reptiles, and lastly of birds and the mammals. And among mammals, primitive fossil of human are the most recent. Now, the slide which showing in front of you, this is a series of vertebrate embryos which compare stages of the development. Now in this file, we are going to discuss you, in this stage, we are going to discuss you the discovered fossil of the horse, elephant, camels, humans provide their ancestral history. Look at that, the horse. Now, the first, that is aqueous, is the herd which showing you the Mesohippus, then the Mesohippus and the Ichthyohippus stages. While the fossil record of the bone of hind leg of horses showing you the Ichthyohippus to aqueous showing decrease in the number of the toes. What is showing you? Decreasing in the number of toes. Now, the modern horse, that is aqueous, is come forward in front of you due to that point. Now, all the organisms is now have the cell as the basic unit of the life. The cell is made up of biomolecules or common to all the organisms. So what? Today I am going to discuss with you the molecular evidence of the evolution. Now, what is that molecular evidence? All organisms, they got a basic unit of life, that is a cell, and the cell is made up of biomolecules or common to all organisms. Ribosomes, the cellular organelle, are of the universal occurrence in the organisms. DNA is the hereditary material of all organisms except for some viruses. ATP means adenine triphosphate is the molecule which stores and releases energy for the biological processes. The same 22 amino acids from the constituents of the proteins of almost all the organisms. The genetic code is universal. Exceptions are very few. The central dogma which deals with the transfer of genetic information in the cell is the same. The basic steps of the transcription and the translation for the protein synthesis are similar in the organisms. The sequence of the nucleotide, such as that of the promoter gene, that is Tata box, TATA box, is common to all organisms. Now, however, the organisms sharing some chemical characteristics show close evolutionary relationship. What are the examples? Human blood protein are some most similar to those of the chimpanzee among all apes. However, what I am saying you, that organisms sharing some chemical characteristics show closer evolutionary relationship. The first example is human blood proteins are most similar to those of the chimpanzee among all the apes, or only plant and some algae have chlorophyll, so they are morely close related to each other. This is an exceptional example. Now, similarly, in chemical constituents between the organism in termed molecular homology or the biochemical homology, and are used in recent times to establish evolutionary relationship and from the basis of the synthetics. Now, what is the mechanism of evolution? After the 4 discussions, we are going to discuss the mechanism of evolution. Various theories about the mechanisms of evolution have been proposed. Some of them, such as the Lamarck theory of inheritance of acquired character and the various theories of mutation, are now of the historical importance only. Now, Darwin theory of natural selection still hold ground but was modified with the progress in genetics and developed into a modern synthetic theory which is regarded as the most valid theory of evolution. Now, what is that theory? Darwin theory of the natural selection, which is again very important aspect of our discussion. An English scientist, Charles Darwin, in 1809, and he is born, and in 1882 he is dead. Now he explained the mechanism of evolution through his theory of natural selection. He is still regarded as a father of evolution. Because of two very significant contributions, he suggested that all kind of organisms are related through ancestry. And second one, he suggested a mechanism for evolution and named natural selection. Those two suggestions or suggested things, they are actually, because of them, people nowadays they are saying he is a father of evolution. One is that all kind of organisms are related through ancestry, and another one is natural selection. Now, according to Darwin, the organism produce more offspring than can survive. Because environmental resources are limited, there ensues struggle for the existence. The organism with advantageous variations are protected and allowed to reproduce. With the disadvantages, variants are eliminated from the nature. This is what was termed natural selection by the Darwin. According to Darwin, when the environment changes, new adaptations get selected in nature, and after many generations, the sufficient characteristics will have been changed so as to alter species into a new one. That is called as the origin of the species. Darwin talked about the variation but did not know about the source of variation. This is an limitations for the Darwins. With the progress in genetics, the source of variation were discovered and Darwin's original theory of natural selection is modified. This new theory was termed as Neo-Darwinism or modern synthetic theory. According to this Neo-Darwin theory or according to this synthetic theory, unit of the evolution is a population which has its own gene pool. What it states that the unit of evolution is a population which has its own gene pool. Gene pool is a group of all different genes of a population. Now, the point second of this theory is heritable genetic changes appear in the individual of a population. These heritable changes or variation occur due to a small mutation in the genes or in the chromosome and their recombinations. Natural selection select the variations which help in adapting the environment. A changes in the genetic constitution of a population selected by natural selection is responsible for evolution of a new species, since through interaction of variation and natural selection, more offsprings with the favorable genetic changes are born. This is called differential reproduction. Once the evolved reproduce isolation helps in keeping the species distinct. Now, what are the elemental forces of the organic evolution? Today, this is very important thing for the discussion. The elemental forces, which are the elements and they are forces the organic evolution. So what? The evolution is caused by the action of the forces on natural selection of the variation. The reproduction or the reproductive isolation keep the species distinct. Therefore, the elemental forces of the evolution are the variation, natural selection and the isolation. Those are the elemental forces. And what are the sources of the organic variation? The organic variation or the evolution or the variation arises in an individual member of a population and is favorable, spreads into a population through differential reproduction by the action of natural selection. The variation may occur by a mutation. I am going to explain you, this is very important. Mutation, which is a sudden genetic change. In the examination, definition will come. What is mutation? The mutation, it means sudden genetic change. It may be a change in a single gene, or gene mutation, or a point mutation, or may affect many genes, means chromosomal mutation. What is mutation? Sudden genetic change. It may be changed in a single gene or in a genetic material or in a point mutation, or may affect in many genes, means chromosomal mutation. Genetic recombination, which occur in a sexually reproducing organism at every reproduction. The chromosomes and thus genes of the partex mix at a random during a zygote formation. This is why offspring of same parents are different from each other, as they have different combination of parental genes. Variation is also brought about when the crossing over occurs during a gamete formation. Now, gene flow is when there is a change mixing of genes of a closely related species through a sexual reproduction. Genetic drift occur in a small population when a part breaks off a large population. Only the representative genes of a large population are present, which undergo change at the right time, and the small population may evolve into a new subspecies or a species. This is about that. Now, we are going to the next, that is natural selection. Natural selection considered to be responsible for a differential reproduction of genes. Look at that. What is a considerable thing for the natural selection? It is responsible for differential reproduction of genes, which means that more of favorable genes get reproduced in a population. Many examples of natural selection in action are available now. Given below are these of the such examples. The example number 1 is DDT resistant mosquitoes. A very interesting example for that. DDT resistance mosquitoes. Now the repellent resistance mosquitoes also available, but now we are going to discuss one example, that is example number 1, that is DDT resistance mosquito, which is example for the natural selection. Okay, about 50 years back, the mosquito population had been kept in control with the help of DDT. Thereafter, it was found that mosquito could not be killed with the DDT any longer. There appeared DDT resistance mosquito. What had happened was that a gene mutation, means variation, had confirmed given on the mosquito and the ability to resist the effect of the DDT. Now, while DDT killed the other mosquitoes, those with the gene mutation survived, and slowly within a few generations, DDT resistant mosquito replaced DDT sensitive ones. DDT sensitive ones. In other words, the DDT resistant mosquito reproduced differently by the action of natural selection. What is I am explaining you, that reproduce differently by the action of the natural selection. This is the example number 1. Now, we are going to discuss the next more efficient or more interesting example, metal tolerance in grasses. Metal tolerance in grasses. Certain metal residues sometimes collect in the soil near some industry using heavy metals. Being poisonous, they kill the grasses. However, the resistant grasses are found to evolve after some time through the action of genetic variation and the natural selection. For the above example, can you explain the evolution of the heavy metal tolerant grasses? Now the next example is a very interesting example, that is industrial melanism. In the examination, the question will come for 5 marks on industrial melanism. So what? A common quoted example of a natural selection in action is that the papered moth, that is a Biston betulia. This is a papered moth. The moth with its light colored wing dotted with spot blended well with the lichens growing on the houses and trees on which it rested. The moth with its light colored wing dotted with the spots blended well with the lichens growing on the houses and the trees on which it rested. Where the lichens growing, note that point is very important. Once in a while, if a mutated form of the moth, which is black in color, appeared, it was eaten up by birds as it was consciously because of its black wings. This was observed the British, the Eslis before the industrial evolution. Now, after the industrial evolution, the genes of the black wings provided favorable on the soot-covered lichens growing on the walls of the houses. Natural selection acted through the agency of the birds, which now ate up the conscious light-colored winged peppered moth. These were therefore soon replaced by the black variety. Now, in front of you, this figure is showing you the light and dark forms of the Biston betulia. Now, there are several such examples in which the human activities changed the environment. The natural selection has been observed to play its role. But it is in an established fact now that all the biodiversity over these millions of the years have also evolved through interaction of variation and the natural selection. Now we are going to discuss you the role of reproductive isolation. Once a new species arises from the parental species due to the effect of variation and natural selection, reproduce barriers prevent the two species from exchanging genes through reproduction. Thus, the two related species cannot mate with each other and remains distinct. Isolation means separation, and reproductive isolation simply means that two species are prevented from successfully reproduction and kept genetically distinct from each other. Now, in front of you, I am showing you a slide that reproductive isolation operate in the following way. The ecological isolation, seasonal isolation, the ethological means behavioral isolation, mechanical isolation, then the physiological isolation, and the zygotic and developmental isolation. The ecological isolation, it means the two species are unable to mate as they live in a geographically different areas. What I am going to discuss in you, the reproductive isolation operate in the following ways, that is ecological isolation, seasonal isolation, the ethological means the behavioral isolation, and mechanical isolation, physiological isolation, zygotic and developmental isolation. In the ecological isolation, the two species are unable to mate as they live in a geographical different areas. Seasonal isolation, mating is prevented because the reproductive organs mature at different times. In the behavioral or ethological isolation, the songs in the birds of the two species or the coloration of two species are so different that female of one species is able to recognize only the male of its own species. In the mechanical isolation, the explanation is very simple. The male and the female organ for mating differ in the different species and prevent their union. That's why we are different. We are diverse. Physiological isolation, the sperms of one species are not able to survive in the female tract of the another species. This is a very peculiar example. The zygotic and the developmental isolation in what? If all the above mentioned mechanism fails and a hybrid zygote from mating of two different species is formed, it dies after some time. Or if the hybrid zygote, it survives, it dies during the development. That is why the reproductive isolation operates in different ways. Then what is the hybrid sterility? Do you know those word hybrid sterility? The best example is mule, the offspring of a female horse, and the male donkey is called as mule, and it is a good example of hybrid sterility. It lead a normal life, but it is sterile, cannot reproduce. Mule cannot reproduce. So this is next, means the F2 breakdown in the second generation, the breakdown is occur. In the rare cases, all the above mechanism fails and a hybrid is fertile. It cannot reproduce only one generation. It cannot reproduce only for one generation. Now this is about the isolation. What is speciation? The evolution of new species is termed speciation. The new species is formed, called as speciation. Speciation occurs in the following ways and is termed accordingly. Allopatric speciation takes place when a part of the population becomes geographically separated, geographically isolated from the parental population. Look at that. There are allopatric and sympatric. There are two types of speciation. Now the allopatric takes place when part of the population becomes geographically separated or isolated from the parental population. For example, a group of birds lives at the base of mountain. Some member fly up and get geographically isolated. Some member didn't fly up, so they get a job again differently. Now the variation and natural selection act differently on the two because the environment in which two live is different. Gradually, genetic changes and render them to reproduce isolated. What is sympatric speciation? Sometimes a genetic barrier, that is a reproductive barrier, prevents the reproduction between a section of a population of a species with other member. Such a section of a population usually arises plant because of the polyploidy. What is polyploidy? Polyploidy is a mutation in which the normal diploid number of the chromosome become doubled or tripled. Means 2n become chromosome 3n, 4n, 5n, etc. in a section of a population of a species due to the certain irregularities during the cell division. The polyploid section of the population is then unable to interbreed, mate and reproduce with the diploid ancestor and become a new species. Now, the hardy vain bird, there are actually two scientists, one is G.H. Hardy and another one is Weinberg. They have one equilibrium. They place one equilibrium. They stated one equilibrium. This is a concept related to both genetics and evolution, and that was proposed by G.H. Hardy and Weinberg. The population of sexually reproduction organism in which gene combine at a random due to a random mating is called as panmictic. In other words, panmictic population is one in which the mating partners are not specially selected. For example, we humans usually do not look for a specific blood group when a marriage is arranged. So, we are panmictic with respect to the blood types. The Hardy-Weinberg principle states that in a panmictic population, if there is no pressure for mutation, selection, genetic drift, then the relative frequency of any pair of the gene remains constant generation after generation. For example, a gene has two alleles P and Q in the population, and no mutation will or selection takes place, then the frequencies of these two alleles will remain constant generation after generation. This can be mathematically represented as the in bracket p plus q bracket square is equal to 1, or p square plus 2pq plus q square is equal to 1. This is an Hardy-Weinberg explanation or the thing or the point. Now, in this way, I am going to finish this very important and interesting part of the evolution. Thank you very much.